The cave smelled like death and old smoke. Taman pressed his small body against the cold stone wall and tried to make himself smaller. His scales, once bright blue like the summer sky, had turned gray and dull. He had not eaten in 5 days. Maybe 6. He could not remember anymore. Outside the cave, the wind howled across the empty mountains. Thraxis was dying. The 3 suns that once warmed this world were growing cold. The grass had turned brown years ago. The rivers had dried up. And the dragons, the mighty, beautiful dragons that had ruled the skies for thousands of years, were almost all gone. Taman's mother had been one of the last. She had been strong and brave, with scales that shimmered like jewels in the sunlight. She had hunted for him every day, bringing back food from the distant valleys where small creatures still lived. She had kept him warm when the nights grew freezing. She had taught him how to breathe small puffs of fire and how to spread his wings to catch the wind. But then the hunters came. They were not dragons. They were something else. Scaled creatures that walked on 2 legs and carried sharp weapons. They wanted the hunting grounds for themselves. His mother had fought them to protect her territory, to protect him. Taman had watched from the cave as she fell from the sky, her wings torn, her body broken. He had cried out, but she never got up again. That was 10 days ago. Or maybe more. Time felt strange when you were alone. Now Taman waited in the cave, hoping his mother would somehow return. But deep inside, in the part of his mind that knew true things, he understood she was never coming back. He was alone. He was going to die alone in this cave, just like so many other creatures on Thraxis had died. He lifted his head and made a sound, a high, lonely cry that echoed off the cave walls. It was a call for help, a sound that baby dragons made when they needed their mothers. The sound traveled out of the cave, across the empty mountains, up into the cold air, but no dragon answered. There were no dragons left to answer. Taman lowered his head again. He was so tired, so hungry. His wings ached from being folded for so long. He closed his eyes and thought about his mother, about the feeling of being safe and warm against her side. Maybe if he slept, he would dream of her. Maybe in his dreams she would still be alive. Far above the planet, beyond the clouds and the cold atmosphere, something moved through the darkness of space. It was a ship, a human ship called the Celestial Dawn. The ship was huge, big enough to hold 300 people and all their equipment. It had traveled from Earth across impossible distances, searching for new worlds and new life. Captain Minji sat in her chair on the bridge, watching the screens that showed Thraxis below. The planet looked sad from up here, brown and gray with only small patches of green left. Her crew had been scanning it for 2 days, looking for signs of life, looking for anything interesting. "Captain," said the science officer, a young woman named Hyeon. She was looking at her screen with a confused expression. "I am picking up unusual biosignatures from the surface." Minji leaned forward. "What kind of biosignatures?" "Large reptilian DNA markers. Very large. And there is something else. Energy readings that do not match anything in our database. It could be a form of telepathic or psychic activity." "Dragons," whispered Daehyun, who was manning the navigation station. He was young and still got excited about discoveries. Could they actually be dragons? "Don't be foolish," said Jiwon, the first officer. He was older, more serious. "Dragons are fantasy, mythology. They do not exist." But Yeon was shaking her head. "The readings are real. There is something alive down there. Something big. Or at least something that was big recently." Minji made a decision. "Prepare a survey team. We go down to investigate." "Captain," Jiwon said carefully, "our mission protocols state that we should not interfere with indigenous species. If there are intelligent creatures down there—" "We are not interfering," Minji interrupted. "We are observing. Prepare the shuttle." An hour later, Hyun was sitting in the shuttle with Daehyun and 2 security officers named Arium and Bongsu. They were wearing environmental suits because Thraxis's atmosphere was thin and cold. The shuttle descended through the clouds, and Hyun watched the sad landscape pass below, dead forests, empty plains, mountains that looked like broken teeth. "The biosignature is coming from those mountains," she said, pointing. "There, that cave system." Daehyun landed the shuttle in a flat area near the mountains. The 5 humans climbed out, their boots crunching on the dry, lifeless ground. The wind was strong and carried dust that made everything look hazy. 3 dim suns hung in the sky. giving barely enough light to see. "Stay alert," Ariam said, her hand on her weapon. "We don't know what we might find." They hiked toward the caves. Hyun kept checking her scanner. The biosignature was getting stronger. Whatever was in that cave was definitely alive, but the readings were weak, fading, like something dying. They reached the cave entrance. It was dark inside and smelled terrible. Hyun turned on her light and stepped forward carefully. The others followed, their lights cutting through the darkness. "There," Daehyun whispered. In the back of the cave, curled up against the wall, was a creature. It was small, maybe the size of a large dog. It had scales, wings folded against its body, and a long tail wrapped around itself. Its scales were gray and dull. Its eyes were closed. "Is it dead?" Bongsu asked quietly. Hyun moved closer, her scanner beeping softly. "No, it is alive. Barely. It is very weak. Starving." She knelt down near the creature. "It is young. A juvenile, maybe equivalent to a human child of 5 or 6 years old." As if it heard her voice, the creature's eyes opened. They were large and golden, filled with ancient intelligence and deep sadness. The creature looked at Hyun, and she felt something in her chest tighten. "It is alone," she whispered. "It is all alone here." The creature made a soft sound, not threatening, just tired and sad. It tried to lift its head but was too weak. Its golden eyes stayed fixed on Hyun, pleading without words. "We need to go," Ariam said. "Protocol says we should not interfere. We have our data. We know what is here." But Hyun did not move. She kept looking at the creature, at this child who was dying alone in the dark. She thought about the regulations, about the rules that said humans should not interfere with alien species. She thought about her duty as a scientist. Then she thought about something more important. She thought about being a living thing in a universe full of darkness and loneliness. She thought about what it meant to see suffering and turn away. "No," she said quietly. "We are not leaving it here." "Hyun," Ariam said, her voice sharp. "You cannot." "The regulations. I do not care about regulations right now," Hyun said. She reached into her pack and pulled out an emergency ration bar. She broke off a piece and held it toward the creature. "Hey there, little one. Are you hungry?" The creature stared at the food. Then very slowly it stretched out its neck and took the piece from her hand. It chewed carefully as if it had forgotten how to eat. Then it swallowed and made a small hopeful sound. Hyun smiled. She broke off another piece of food. "That is right. Eat slowly. There is more where that came from." She did not know it yet, but this moment would change everything. Not just for her, not just for the small creature she was feeding, but for all of humanity's future among the stars. The shuttle ride back to the celestial dawn was tense and quiet. Hyun sat in the back with her environmental suit unzipped at the top. And inside her suit, pressed against her chest for warmth, was Taemin. The little dragonling was wrapped in her emergency blanket, his small body trembling. He had eaten 3 ration bars and drunk water from her canteen. His golden eyes stayed fixed on her face as if he was afraid she might disappear if he looked away. Daehyun kept glancing back at them from the pilot seat. "This is crazy," he muttered. "You know this is crazy, right?" "I know," Hyun said softly. Her hand moved gently over the blanket, and she could feel the dragonling's heartbeat, fast and frightened. "But I could not leave him there to die." Ariam was frowning, her arms crossed. "The captain will not be happy. And Ji-won will definitely report this. Regulations are very clear about taking indigenous species from their planets." "Then let them be unhappy," Hyun said. "I will accept whatever punishment they give me." But this child was dying alone in that cave. His family is gone. His world is dying. What was I supposed to do? Bongsu, who had been quiet the whole time, finally spoke. "You did what any decent person would do." "I would have done the same, really." Ariam looked at him in surprise. "Really?" Bongsu said firmly. "I have kids back on Earth, 3 of them. If I saw a child suffering, any child, I would help them. I do not care what species they are." Ariam was quiet for a moment. Then she sighed. "We are all going to get in trouble for this." "Probably," Hyun agreed. "But at least this little one will be alive." Inside her suit, Taemin made a small chirping sound. He pushed his head up slightly, and Hyun could see his snout peeking out from the blanket. His scales were already looking a bit better, less gray, more blue coming through. The shuttle docked with the celestial dawn. Hyun had a plan. She would take Taemin to her quarters first, get him settled and fed properly, And then she would go explain everything to the captain. It was not a great plan, but it was the only one she had. "Help me get him inside without anyone seeing," she said to the others. Daehyun nodded. "I can make sure the docking bay is clear. Give me 2 minutes." He left first, and they heard him over the comm system. "Hey, everyone in Bay 3, we need you to check the equipment in Bay 5, Captain's orders." There was some grumbling, but people moved away. Ariam checked the corridor. "Clear, go now, quickly." Hyun hurried through the ship's corridors with Taemin hidden under her jacket. Her quarters were on Deck 7 in the science section. Her room was small, just a bed, a desk, a bathroom, and some storage. But it was private, and that was what mattered right now. She locked the door behind her and carefully took Taemin out of her jacket. She set him down on her bed. He looked around with wide eyes, taking in the strange metal walls, the lights, the sounds of the ship humming around them. "It is okay," Hyun said softly. "You are safe here. This is my home. Well, my temporary home. You can stay here with me." Taemin tilted his head, watching her. Then, very carefully, he stretched out one wing. It was beautiful, even though it was still small and not fully developed. The wing membrane was thin and had tiny veins running through it that caught the light. Hyun smiled. "Those are beautiful wings. When you are bigger and stronger, you will fly. I promise." She went to her small food storage and pulled out everything she had. Protein bars, dried fruit, some chicken that she had been saving for dinner. She put it all on a plate and set it in front of Taemin. The dragonling sniffed each item carefully. Then he began to eat, slowly at first, then faster. He was so hungry. Hyun felt her heart break a little, thinking about how long he must have been alone, starving in that cave. While he ate, she filled a bowl with water and set it nearby. Taemin drank deeply, water dripping from his snout. When he finished, he made a satisfied sound and looked at her. Then he did something unexpected. He walked across the bed to where she was sitting and climbed into her lap. He turned around 3 times like a cat, and then curled up with his head resting on her leg. Within seconds, he was asleep. Hyun sat very still. She looked down at the small creature in her lap, at his sides rising and falling with each breath, at the way his tail was wrapped protectively around her arm. Something stirred in her chest, a feeling she had never expected to feel. She was a scientist. She had spent her whole life studying alien life, always keeping professional distance, always being objective. But this did not feel like studying a specimen. This felt like something else entirely. This felt like holding a child who trusted her completely. "What am I going to do with you?" she whispered. Over the next 3 days, Hyun kept Taemin hidden in her quarters. Daehyun and Ariam helped, sneaking her extra food from the cafeteria and running interference when anyone got too curious about why she was spending so much time in her room. During those 3 days, something amazing happened. Taemin grew stronger. His scales became brighter, shifting from dull gray to beautiful shimmering blue. He started playing, pouncing on Hyun's socks and chasing the light from her datapad across the floor. He learned to make different sounds, a happy chirp when she came back to the room, a questioning trill when he wanted something, a soft purr when he was content. But the most amazing thing happened on the 3rd night. Hyun was lying in bed, reading a report, when she felt a strange sensation in her mind. It was like someone was gently knocking on a door. Then suddenly she saw an image, not with her eyes but in her thoughts. She saw herself the way Taemin saw her. She saw warmth and safety and kindness. She gasped. "You are telepathic." Taemin, who was curled up beside her, opened one golden eye. Then she felt another sensation, a feeling of confirmation, of yes. "Can you understand me?" she asked. Another feeling came, not quite words, but meaning. "Yes. Some. Learning." Hyun sat up, amazed. "This is incredible. You can share thoughts, share feelings." She paused. "Can you show me what happened to you?" "Show me your mother?" Taemin was quiet for a moment. Then, hesitantly, he shared a memory. Hyun gasped as images flooded her mind. A beautiful dragon with shimmering scales. The feeling of being safe and warm, flying through the sky together. Then darker images, the hunters attacking, the fight, her mother falling. The loneliness, the hunger, the terrible aching loneliness of being the last one. Tears streamed down Hyun's face. "Oh, little one, I am so sorry. I am so sorry." She felt Taemin's sadness like a physical weight, but then she felt something else, a new feeling from him. A feeling of hope, a feeling that maybe, just maybe, he was not completely alone anymore. Hyun pulled him close. You are not alone, she whispered. I promise you, you are not alone anymore. I will take care of you. I will keep you safe. Taman pressed his head against her chest, and she felt his trust and relief wash over her through their mental connection. In that moment, something shifted in her heart. This was not just about saving an alien creature. This was about something deeper, something that transcended species and biology. This was about family. But the next morning, her luck ran out. Hyun was in her bathroom, cleaning up when she heard the door to her quarters open. She had forgotten to lock it. She rushed out to find Ji-won standing in her doorway staring at Taman, who was sitting on her bed eating breakfast. The first officer's face went through several expressions: surprise, confusion, and then anger. What is that doing on the ship? Taman, sensing danger, spread his wings and hissed softly. Ji-won, please, Hyun started. No. His voice was hard. No, there is no please here. You brought an unauthorized alien life form onto this vessel. You violated multiple regulations. You put the entire crew at risk. He is not a risk, Hyun said desperately. He is just a child. He was dying. That does not matter. Ji-won pulled out his communicator. Captain Minji, this is First Officer Ji-won. I need you to come to Science Officer Hyun's quarters immediately. We have a serious situation. Hyun's heart sank. She looked at Taman, who was watching everything with frightened eyes. Through their mental link, she felt his fear, and she sent back the only thing she could, love and reassurance. It is okay, she told him softly. Whatever happens, it is going to be okay. I promise, but even as she said it, she wondered if she could keep that promise. She had broken the rules to save him. Now she would have to face the consequences, and she had no idea what those consequences would be. Captain Minji stood in Hyun's quarters, looking at Taman with an expression that was hard to read. The Dragonling had retreated to the corner of the bed, his wings partially spread in a defensive posture. His golden eyes moved between Ji-won and the captain, uncertain and afraid. How long has this creature been on my ship? Minji asked quietly. 3 days, Captain, Hyun said. She stood straight, ready to accept whatever punishment was coming. I brought him aboard after we found him dying in that cave on Theraxis. I accept full responsibility for my actions. Ji-won crossed his arms. She violated protocol. Multiple protocols. She smuggled an unknown alien species onto the Celestial Dawn without authorization, without quarantine procedures, without... I know what she did, Ji-won, Minji interrupted. She stepped closer to the bed. Taman hissed softly, but the captain did not back away. What is his name? Hyun blinked. His name? Yes. You have been caring for him for 3 days. Did you give him a name? Taman, Hyun said softly. His name is Taman, Minji nodded. She looked at the Dragonling for a long moment. Taman, that is a good name. Then she turned back to Hyun. We will discuss your punishment later. For now, I want a full medical examination of this creature. I want to know if he carries any diseases that could harm the crew. I want a complete behavioral assessment, and I want daily reports on his condition. Captain, Ji-won protested, surely you are not suggesting we keep this creature on board. I am not suggesting anything yet, Minji said firmly. But we are not making any decisions without complete information. Hyun, you will continue to care for him, but you will also document everything. Everything, is that understood? Yes, Captain, Hyun said, relief flooding through her. Thank you. Do not thank me yet, Minji said. We still need to decide what happens next. But we will do this properly, with all the facts. She left and Ji-won followed, though he gave Hyun a disapproving look before he walked out. When they were alone again, Taman immediately ran to Hyun and climbed up her legs until she picked him up. He pressed his face against her neck, and through their mental connection, she felt his fear slowly fading. It is okay, she whispered. We have more time. The captain is fair. She will listen. Over the next week, Hyun's life changed completely. She moved Taman to a larger room in the science section, one that had been used for equipment storage but was now converted into a living space for him. The crew helped set it up with soft bedding, climbing structures, and heat lamps because Taman liked being warm. Dr. Kang, the ship's chief medical officer, examined Taman thoroughly. The Dragonling was nervous at first, but Hyun stayed with him, holding his front paw and sending calming thoughts through their mental link. He is healthy. Dr. Kang announced after several days of tests. No diseases, no parasites, nothing that could harm humans. His biology is fascinating. He has a secondary heart, probably for flight when he gets bigger. His brain is highly developed, especially the areas associated with empathy and social bonding. And yes, he is definitely telepathic. I can feel him poking around in my head when I examine him. He is curious, Yan explained. He wants to understand everything. He is intelligent, Dr. Kang corrected. Very intelligent. Probably as smart as a human child, maybe smarter in some ways. The question is, how smart will he be when he is fully grown? That question hung in the air. How big would Taman get? His species had clearly been large. Yan had seen the remains of adult dragons on Theraxis, creatures with wingspans of 15 meters or more. But would Taman grow that large on a ship? And if he did, what would they do? For now, though, Taman was small and growing slowly. He was learning quickly, too. Within 2 weeks, he had learned to understand basic human speech. He could not talk, his mouth was not shaped for human words, but he could understand almost everything Hyun said. And through their telepathic link, he could share complex thoughts and feelings. Every morning, Hyun would come to his room, and Taman would greet her with excited chirps and jumps. Every evening, she would read to him from her datapad, stories from Earth, scientific reports, anything with words. Taman would curl up beside her, his tail wrapped around her waist, and listen. Sometimes he would share images with her, showing her how he pictured the stories in his mind. One night, Hyun was reading a fairy tale about a princess and a dragon, and Taman suddenly sent her a very clear thought. Mother? Hyun stopped reading, her breath caught in her throat. What did you say? The thought came again, stronger this time, with images and feelings attached. He showed her memories of his biological mother, but then he showed her memories of Hyun, feeding him, caring for him, keeping him safe. The two images blended together in his mind. You, mother, now. Tears filled Hyun's eyes. I am not your real mother, Taman. He tilted his head, confused. Then he sent another thought, simpler and more direct. Love, family, mother. Oh, little one. Hyun pulled him close, hugging him carefully. Yes, I suppose I am your mother now, if that is what you want. She felt his happiness surge through their connection, pure and bright. He had been alone for so long, thinking he had lost everything. But now he had found something new, different from what he had before, but just as real, just as important. As word spread through the ship about the Dragonling, more crew members came to visit. Some were curious, some were concerned. But most were charmed by the small blue creature who seemed so eager to meet everyone. Daehyun brought Taman toys, balls that squeaked and ropes to play tug-of-war. Taman loved them, pouncing and playing with the enthusiasm of any young creature. Ariam brought him different foods to try, and they discovered that Taman particularly loved fish and anything sweet. Even some of the crew members who had been skeptical changed their minds when they met Taman. He had a way of connecting with people, of making them feel seen and understood. Through his limited telepathy, he could sense emotions and would respond with comfort or playfulness, whatever the person needed. One day, an engineer named Junho came to visit. He had recently received news that his father was very sick back on Earth, and he was worried. Taman immediately went to him and gently placed his head on Junho's lap. The engineer started to cry, and Taman stayed perfectly still, offering silent comfort. Later, Junho told Hyun, I felt like he understood, like he knew what I was feeling. He did, Hyun said simply. That is his gift. But not everyone was convinced. Ji-won remained opposed to keeping Taman on the ship. He is getting bigger, the first officer pointed out during a staff meeting. Every day he grows. What happens when he is too big for that room? Too big for the ship? We will deal with that when it happens, Hyun said. Right now he is a child who needs care and protection. He is an alien, Ji-won countered. Not a human child. We need to think about the future, about what? Aryam interrupted. About rules and regulations? Or about doing what is right? Rules exist for good reasons, Ji-won said coldly. Captain Minji held up her hand. Enough. We are not making any decisions today. But Ji-won is right about one thing. We need to think about the future. Hyun, I want you to work with Taman on training. If he is going to stay on this ship, he needs to learn control. He needs to understand boundaries. Yes, Captain, Hyun agreed, so Hyun began training Taman. She taught him not to scratch the walls or chew on equipment. She taught him to stay in his room when she was working unless she came to get him. She taught him to be gentle with people, to control his strength because even as a juvenile he was already stronger than a human. Taemin learned quickly. He wanted to please Hyun, wanted to make her proud. Through their connection, she felt his determination to be good, to prove that he deserved to stay. One evening, after a particularly good training session, Hyun sat with Taemin on the floor of his room. He had his head resting on her lap and she was gently stroking his scales. They shimmered beautifully now, bright blue with hints of purple and silver. "You have come so far," she told him. "Your mother would be proud of you." Taemin sent her a feeling of sadness mixed with gratitude. He missed his birth mother. He always would. But he was grateful for this new mother, this human who had chosen to save him when she did not have to. "I am proud of you too," Hyun continued. "You are brave and smart and kind. Whatever happens, I want you to know that." Taemin lifted his head and looked at her with those wise golden eyes. Then he did something he had never done before. He sent her a complete thought in words, not just feelings or images. It was simple, just 3 words, but they were clear as a bell in her mind. "Love you, Mother." Hyun felt tears streaming down her face. "I love you too, my brave little dragon. I love you too." Outside Taemin's room, Daehyun and Aryam stood in the corridor, having come to check on them. Through the window they could see Hyun hugging Taemin, both of them peaceful and content. "They really are family, aren't they?" Aryam said softly. Daehyun nodded. "Yeah, they really are." Neither of them knew that in just 2 days everything would change. Captain Minji would call a tribunal, and the question of Taemin's future would finally have to be decided. The conference room was packed. Captain Minji sat at the head of the long table, with Jiwon on her right. Hyun sat near the end, her hands folded tightly in her lap. Around the table sat the senior officers, Dr. Kang, Chief Engineer Minho, Communications Officer Nari, and several others. At the back of the room, Daehyun and Aryam stood against the wall there as witnesses. Taemin was not in the room. Hyun had left him in his quarters with a pile of toys and food. Through their mental connection, she could feel his anxiety. He knew something important was happening, even if he did not understand exactly what. Captain Minji called the meeting to order. "We are here to decide the fate of the creature known as Taemin. First Officer G1 has formally requested that we return the creature to Thraxis, citing violations of exploration protocols. Science Officer Hyun has requested that we allow the creature to remain on board. I have asked you all here to provide input before I make a final decision." Ji-won stood up. "Captain, members of the crew, the rules are very clear. We are not supposed to interfere with indigenous species. We are especially not supposed to remove them from their home planets. Science Officer Hyun violated these rules when she brought this creature aboard. While I understand her compassion cannot override protocol. If we ignore the rules whenever we feel emotional, we create a dangerous precedent." He pulled up images on the main screen, pictures of Taemin growing bigger each week. Furthermore, this creature is growing rapidly. In 6 weeks, he has doubled in size. At this rate, within a year, he will be too large to safely contain on this ship. He could become dangerous. We have no way of knowing what his adult behavior will be like. Several officers nodded. Ji-won continued. "I propose we return the creature to Thraxis. We can leave him in an area with resources, food, water, shelter. We can give him the best chance possible, but we cannot keep him here. It is not safe and it is not right." Ji-won sat down. The room was quiet. "Science Officer Hyun," Captain Minji said. "Your response?" Hyun stood up. Her legs felt shaky, but she forced herself to speak clearly. "First Officer Ji-won is correct about one thing. I did violate protocol. I accept responsibility for that. But I do not regret my decision, and I will tell you why." She pulled up her own images, pictures of Thraxis. This is a dying world. The ecosystem has collapsed. When we were on the surface, we found remains of at least 15 adult dragons, all dead within the last year. We found no living adult dragons, no juvenile dragons. Taemin was the only one left alive. She changed the image to show the cave where they found him. He was starving, alone, waiting to die. He is a child, yes, an alien child, but a child nonetheless, with intelligence, emotions, and the capacity to suffer. Jan looked around the room. Ji-won suggests we return him to Thraxis and leave him with resources. But resources will not help him. He is a social creature. His species lived in family groups. They took care of their young for years, not weeks. If we leave him alone on that planet, he will die. Maybe not immediately, but eventually. He will die alone. That may be his natural fate, Jiwan said quietly. We cannot save every creature in the universe. No, Yan agreed. But we can save this one. We can save him because he is right here and he needs help, and we have the ability to provide it. Dr. Kang raised her hand. May I speak? Please, Captain Minji said. The doctor stood. I have examined Taman extensively. I have also spent time with him, observing his behavior. He is not just intelligent, he is self-aware. He understands that he is different from us. He understands concepts like past and future, family and loss. In my medical opinion, he has the cognitive and emotional capacity equivalent to a human child of 7 or 8 years old. She paused. If we found a human child alone on a dying planet, would we leave them there? Would we say it is protocol and fly away? That is different, Jiwan protested. That would be a human child. Why is it different? Ariam spoke up from the back of the room. Because he has scales instead of skin? Because he has wings? He thinks, he feels. He loves. What else matters? Lieutenant Ariam, Jiwan said sharply, you are not part of this tribunal. But I am part of this crew, Ariam interrupted. And I have spent time with Taman. I have seen how he interacts with people. He comforts Junho when he is sad. He plays gently with the children in the educational section. He helps in the hydroponics bay, carefully moving things without damaging them. He is not a wild animal. He is a person. Daehyun stepped forward. I want to add something. Last week there was an accident in engineering. A coolant line burst and toxic gas started leaking. I was there. I was overcome by the fumes. Do you know who saved me? He looked around the room. Taman. Yan had brought him to tour the ship, and he sensed something was wrong through his telepathy. He alerted Hyun, who called emergency crews. But Taman did not wait. He went into that room, held his breath, grabbed my suit collar in his teeth and dragged me out. An 8-week-old child risked his life to save mine. The room erupted in whispers. Many people had not heard about this incident. Captain Minji held up her hand for silence. Is this true? Minho, the chief engineer, nodded. Yes, Captain. I filed a report. The boy is a hero. He saved Daehyun's life. Jiwon looked uncomfortable. That is commendable, but it does not change the fundamental issue. We cannot keep him here permanently. Why not? Nari, the communications officer, asked. We have the space. We have the resources. Yes, he will get bigger, but we can adapt. We have engineers who can modify sections of the ship. And what about when he is fully grown? Jiwon demanded. What about when he is 15 meters long with a wingspan of 20 meters? How do we contain him then? Maybe we do not need to contain him, Hyun said quietly. Maybe by then he will be a full member of this crew, making choices, contributing, living as we all do, in cooperation and community. You are talking about treating an alien creature as if it were human, Jiwan said. No, Yan corrected. I am talking about treating a sentient, intelligent, feeling being with the respect and dignity they deserve. Human or not, he is a person. Captain Minji stood up. I need to see him. I need to see Taman before I make my decision. Hyun, bring him here. Captain, Jiwon protested. This is a formal tribunal. And I am the captain, Minji said firmly. I will see him. Now. 10 minutes later, Hyun returned with Taman. The Dragonling had grown considerably in 6 weeks. He was now the size of a large dog, his wings folded neatly against his body. His scales gleamed bright blue in the conference room lights. Taman looked around at all the people and pressed closer to Hyun's leg, nervous. She put her hand on his head reassuringly. Taman, Captain Minji said gently. Come here, please. Taman looked up at Hyun, uncertain. She nodded encouragingly. Slowly, the Dragonling walked toward the captain. He stopped in front of her, his golden eyes meeting hers. Minji knelt down so they were at eye level. I need to make a decision about your future. Do you understand? Taman tilted his head. Then carefully he reached out with his telepathy, not forcing his way in but gently asking permission. The captain gasped softly as she felt the connection. Everyone in the room watched as Captain and Dragonling stared at each other. Minji's expression changed, surprise, then sadness, then something like wonder. He is showing me memories, she whispered. His mother, the hunters. Being alone. Hyun finding him. Tears filled her eyes. He is showing me what it felt like to be dying and what it felt like to be saved. Taemin pulled back from the connection. He sat down in front of the captain and very deliberately placed one paw on her knee, a gesture of trust and respect. Captain Minji reached out and stroked his head once. Then she stood up and addressed the room. I have made my decision. Taemin will stay on the Celestial Dawn. Jiwon stood up. Captain, I must protest, and your protest is noted, Minji said. But my decision is final. However, there will be conditions. She looked at Hyun. Science Officer Hyun, you will be demoted 1 rank for your violation of protocol. You will also take full responsibility for Taemin's care, training, and behavior. Any damage he causes, any problems he creates will be your responsibility. If at any point he becomes a danger to this crew, we will revisit this decision. Do you accept these terms? Yes, Captain, Hyun said without hesitation. I accept. Furthermore, Minji continued, Taemin is to undergo extensive training. Not just basic obedience, but education. If he is to be part of this crew, he must understand our rules, our customs, our ways. Dr. Kang, I want you to work with Hyun on developing a comprehensive development program. Yes, Captain, Dr. Kang said, smiling. And Ji-won? Minji turned to her first officer. I need you to work with engineering to modify sections of the ship for Taemin's future growth. We will do this right. We will do this safely. Ji-won's jaw was tight, but he nodded. Yes, Captain. Minji looked around the room. Let me be clear, this is unprecedented. We are making history here. We are deciding that intelligence and personhood matter more than biology. We are deciding that family can cross species. We are deciding that compassion is not a violation of our values, but an expression of them. She put her hand on Taemin's head. Welcome to the crew of the Celestial Dawn, Taemin. May you grow strong and wise. Taemin made a happy chirping sound and looked up at Hyun. Through their bond, she felt his relief and joy flooding through. She knelt down as 6 months passed. The Celestial Dawn continued its journey through space, exploring new worlds, making discoveries, and carrying within it something truly special, the first alien to become an official member of a human crew. Taemin had grown significantly. He was now the size of a small horse with a wingspan of nearly 4 meters when fully extended. His scales had developed beautiful patterns, deep blue with silver streaks that seemed to shimmer when he moved. His wings were strong enough now that he could glide, though he could not yet fly properly. That would come later when he was fully grown. But more impressive than his physical growth was his mental and emotional development. Taemin could now understand complex human speech. He could follow instructions, make decisions, and even solve problems. His telepathy had also grown stronger and more precise. He could now communicate specific thoughts and ideas, not just feelings and images. Every morning, Taemin attended lessons with Dr. Kang and Hyun. They taught him mathematics, science, history, and ethics. Taemin learned eagerly, his intelligence surprising everyone. He particularly loved astronomy, spending hours looking at star maps and asking questions through his telepathic connection. Why do humans explore? He asked Hyun one day, his thoughts clear in her mind. Because we are curious, she answered. Because we want to understand the universe. Because we hope to find others like us, intelligent, thinking beings who can share knowledge and friendship. Like me? Taemin asked. Yes, Hyun smiled. Exactly like you. You are proof that we are not alone. You are proof that family and friendship can exist between different species. In the afternoons, Taemin had work assignments. Captain Minji had insisted that if he was part of the crew, he needed to contribute. So Taemin helped in the hydroponics bay, using his careful claws to tend delicate plants. He assisted in cargo loading, his strength useful for moving heavy equipment. He even helped in medical bay, where his telepathy allowed him to sense when patients were in pain or distress. The crew had fully accepted him now. Children on the ship loved him, and he was gentle and patient with them, letting them climb on his back and playing simple games. Adults respected him, seeing him not as a pet or a curiosity but as a colleague. Even Ji-won, who had opposed keeping him, had softened somewhat. One day there was an emergency. The ship encountered an unexpected debris field, and a large chunk of metal punctured the hull in Section 7. Alarms blared throughout the ship. The section began to lose atmosphere rapidly. 2 crew members, engineers named Hana and Seokjin, were trapped in that section. The emergency doors had sealed, and the control panel to open them had been damaged by the debris. They had maybe 3 minutes before they ran out of air. Captain Minji was on the bridge, coordinating rescue efforts. "Engineering, how fast can you cut through those doors?" 10 minutes minimum, Captain," Minho reported. "We do not have 10 minutes. We have emergency suits in that section," Jiwon said. "But they would need to reach them." "Wait," Hyun said suddenly. "Taemin can fit through the maintenance shafts. He can get to them." Everyone turned to look at her. "The maintenance shafts are too small for humans," she continued quickly. "But Taemin can squeeze through. He is strong enough to carry suits to Hana and Seokjin. It might work." Captain Minji made a decision in seconds. "Do it. Hyun, direct him." Hyun did not need to explain the situation to Taemin. Through their connection, he had already sensed the emergency, felt the fear of the trapped crew members. He ran to the maintenance shaft entrance, his body already adapting, becoming more streamlined. 2 emergency suits, Hyun told him, attaching them to a harness on his back. "Section 7? Hana and Seokjin need them. Can you do this?" Taemin did not hesitate. He sent back a clear thought. "Yes." He squeezed into the maintenance shaft, moving quickly despite the cramped space. On the bridge, everyone watched his progress through the ship's internal sensors. The clock was ticking. 2 minutes left. Taemin moved with incredible speed and grace, his body twisting through turns that should have been impossible. He reached Section 7 in 90 seconds. Through an access panel, he emerged into the compromised section. Hana and Seokjin were there, pressed against the far wall, holding their breath as the air grew thinner. Their eyes widened when they saw Taemin. The Dragonling moved quickly. He pulled the suits off his harness and pushed them toward the 2 engineers. Then, through his telepathy, he sent them clear instructions. "Put on, now, quickly." They understood. With shaking hands, they pulled on the suits. Just as they sealed their helmets, the last of the breathable air disappeared from the section. But they were safe now, breathing from the suit tanks. Taemin then did something remarkable. He moved to the damaged control panel and examined it. His claws, surprisingly delicate despite their size, began manipulating the wires. He had watched engineers work many times. He had learned. On the bridge, Minho gasped. "He is trying to repair the door controls." That is a level 3 engineering repair. That requires training." They watched as Taemin worked, his movements careful and precise. After 2 minutes, the emergency door suddenly opened. The 2 engineers stumbled through to safety, and Taemin followed. The door sealed behind them, containing the damage. Hana pulled off her helmet, tears in her eyes. She threw her arms around Taemin's neck. "You saved us." Thank you. Taemin made a soft, pleased sound. Through the ship's communication system, everyone heard Hyun's voice. "Good boy, Taemin. I am so proud of you." After that incident, no one questioned Taemin's place on the ship anymore. He had proven himself in the most fundamental way possible, by risking his life to save others. A month later, the Celestial Dawn docked at a space station for resupply and crew rotation. It was a massive station, home to thousands of people from Earth and several allied colonies. When Taemin emerged from the ship with Hyun, walking beside her on the station's promenade, people stopped and stared. News of the Dragonling had spread. Scientists wanted to study him. Media wanted to interview Hyun. Children wanted to meet the dragon from space. It was overwhelming, but Taemin handled it with grace and patience. One young boy, maybe 6 years old, approached shyly. "Are you really a dragon?" he asked. Taemin lowered his head to the boy's level and sent a gentle telepathic message. "Yes, I am dragon." The boy's eyes went wide. "Can I touch your scales?" Taemin nodded. The boy reached out carefully and stroked Taemin's neck. "They are so smooth. And warm. Are you nice?" another child asked. "Or are dragons mean?" Taemin sat down and gathered his thoughts carefully. He sent out a message that everyone nearby could feel. Dragons can be nice. Humans can be nice. Being nice is choice, not species. The adults who heard this looked at each other in amazement. A 7-month-old alien had just expressed a concept that humans had struggled with for millennia. That morality and kindness were choices, not biological imperatives. A reporter pushed forward with a camera. Science Officer Hyan, what does it mean for humanity that we have accepted an alien into our society? Hyun thought carefully before answering. It means we are growing. It means we are learning that intelligence and personhood exist in many forms. Taemin is not human, but he is a person. He thinks, feels, loves, and contributes to our community. He is proof that we can build a multi-species civilization based on mutual respect and care. But what about the regulations? Another reporter asked. You violated first contact protocols. Do you regret that? Hyun looked at Taemin, who was now surrounded by children, letting them climb gently on his back while he made sure each one was safe. No, she said firmly. I do not regret it. Rules are important, but they should serve life, not restrict it. When I found Taemin dying in that cave, I had to choose between following a rule and saving a child. I chose the child. I would make the same choice again. That evening, back on the Celestial Dawn, Hyun and Taemin sat together in the observation deck. Through the huge window, they could see the infinite darkness of space, dotted with countless stars. Do you miss Thraxis? Hyun asked softly. Do you miss your home? Taemin was quiet for a moment. Then he sent her a complex thought full of nuance. I miss Mother. First Mother. Always miss her. But Thraxis was dying. No future there. Here is future. Here is family. Here is home now. He pressed his head against her side. You are home. Ship is home. Crew is family. This is where I belong. Hyun felt tears streaming down her face. I never planned this, you know. I never planned to become a mother. Especially not to a dragon. Plans changed, Taemin sent back, and she could feel his amusement. This is better than plan. She laughed through her tears. Yes, this is better than any plan. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the stars. Then Taemin sent another thought. Will I be only one? Only dragon with humans? I do not know, Hyun answered honestly. Your species may be extinct. You may be the last one, but that does not mean you are alone. You have us. You have 300 people who care about you. And maybe, Taemin said slowly, thinking it through, maybe there are other species, other children who need help, other beings who can join human family. I can help find them. I can show them it is safe. I can be... What is word bridge? Hyun caught her breath. Yes, you can be a bridge. Be